Welcome to the Real Board Loft. I'm Trip Forman. Today we have a very special guest with us, Cory Lopez. Cory, welcome. We have been excited to have you and your family staying with us at Waterman's Retreat here for the week in Cape Hatteras. And you guys have been surfing all over the island, north side, south side, lots of fun, warm water, summer surf. Tell us a little bit about your trip first before we get into this board review.
Obviously Hatteras and Outer Banks is just a great place. I've been coming here since a child, and to come out here and spend a week with my family at Waterman's Retreat is just always a good time. And yeah, like you said, we got waves like as far south as you can go on the island, down in Hatteras, and driving out on the beach down there. Had a great little session with the kids and just some fun waves, really, because I didn't know we were gonna get anything that day, and all of a sudden we're like, hey, there's waves down south, and it ended up being really fun, like playful, like waist to chest high and just clean, and truck on the beach. You couldn't really ask for a better day. And then up here, you know, yesterday we got some really nice waves up in Rodanthe, and it's just been a fun week of just goofing around, surfing, and hanging out at the beach and driving a truck on the beach, which is always fun.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, to just be able to like kind of go up and down the beach and like look for your private little peak, and you know, a lot of times have it all to yourself if you put the homework in, you know?
No, that's what's cool about it, you know, when you can go and just drive down and search and find a spot, or just walk across the dune and just kind of check your own spots and get away. Like, we were able to surf some really uncrowded surf on this trip. Not a lot of people in town right now, and we enjoyed it. So, you know, and I was excited to come down here and be able to do this board review on the Puddle Jumper Pro, you know, a model I've never ridden. I've never ridden one of the Puddle Jumpers, just because they were, in the past, they were so different from what I traditionally ride.
Right.
Even though I live in Florida where the waves are really soft, I can still get away with either riding, like, I'd ride a lot of fishes, obviously, like the 96 swordfish and those types of models. But other than that, I generally stick to my traditional models. But now with this new Puddle Jumper Pro, it's come closer to what I traditionally ride, but still very different, as in the way they distribute the volume through them. So this is a similar volume to what I normally ride. This is, what was this one, 26? So this one's 5'6", 19, 2.35 inches thick by 26.5 liters. So this board for me is real similar liters to what I normally would ride. And you know, the difference I think here, the noses, obviously because it's a 5'6", you know, it's a shorter board, so it does still have a little more curve in this, but it's pulled in enough to where you don't notice it. It's not like where I feel, you know, you're catching water up here or anything like that. It still feels very high performance. The biggest difference to me is the wider tail in the board, which does create a little bit different feel. I think more so backside for me than frontside. Frontside I noticed really nothing different. Just the speed. Like, as soon as I jumped on the board, I recognized the board just wanting to, you know, puddle jumper. Like, it was like,
it wants to go.
And not to mention the technology here with the
with Lightspeed.
With the Lightspeed glass job, you know. And I haven't ridden epoxies in years. So to get onto the Lightspeed, the first time I ever rode a Lightspeed, I really noticed the pop. Our first session was pretty small, and this board was just flying through it, and I felt, you know, the airs I was doing with this Lightspeed technology, just I could feel the pop and the difference. Like, it was small, but the board just wanted to fly out of the wave, like to do an air.
I mean, looking at those first few clips that like Jeffrey sent our way of you on this board, like session number 1 frontside. I mean, the surf was pretty small. You know, it's good. It was, you know, fun like Grom surf, you know, but like for you know, adults and stuff, it was like probably below like kind of normally what you're looking for. You know, and you were just like flying on that thing.
Yeah, I was, you know, that was this, you know, the first real session on the board, and I noticed right away that that the board was just flying. Actually, it was the first session on the board, first wave was an air, and I you know, made it, but the board just felt like it had a lot of pop. So the epoxy, like, just, it was giving me that extra little boost up into the air. And then just to feel the speed I was generating out of it, you know, just a pump. So anyway, really fun board, really fast. And other than that, like, you know, I don't know, you know, I rode a couple different fin setups on it. I did not get a chance to try it as a quad, which I know that in the board review that Biolis put on the Lost website says people really enjoy it as a quad. I know Yeomans does. I've always traditionally been a tri-fin surfer, you know, but maybe that was why I didn't even try to put him in, but subconsciously.
When I threw quad out there, you're like, no, I'm thruster, man, thruster all the way.
I'm a thruster surfer.
And I think there's a lot of people out there like that, you know, I mean, so people do want to know, like, hey, does it work as a thruster?
Yeah, and eventually I will get to it as a quad. I didn't on this trip.
Right.
But I did ride a couple different fin setups. I accidentally one day put my kids' fins in it.
Yeah, that's a good story.
They look exactly like mine, right?
Okay.
And I was just in a rush. I'm like, the waves look fun. Like, I got the car on the beach. I'm like getting my wife set up with her umbrella, and I'm like, I got to get out there. I just popped a pair of fins and it looked like mine. And I'm like, wow, this board's like flying, and it was flying. But then like backside, I noticed a little bit of an issue. I'm like, what is going on? And then I come to realize, I come in later, I'm like, oh, I had smalls on. Like I've never ridden small fins. I've never ridden small fins in my life. And frontside, I didn't notice it. The board was so fast frontside with those small fins. It was great, actually, really enjoyable. But then backside, I just had to change the dynamics. My bottom turn was wanting to drift. But I think the fins were just sliding through the bottom turn.
And
that was the only thing I noticed. So the next session, obviously, I put back to my medium claw hand, fins, and they worked great.
And you ride mediums, right?
I traditionally ride medium, and I've been riding. I rode this board with a small claw haze, and I rode them with the medium claw haze.
Okay.
And then I even tried them one time with the 2 medium sides and a small trailer, and that worked great as well.
Okay.
So the medium for me was the go-to, and then the medium with a small trailer was actually really good, just to loosen up even a little more when the waves were small.
And when would you go to the like bigger front, smaller back? Like what type of conditions you
just
think
when the waves are a little smaller and soft. You know, like if there's like not much juice to it at all and you want to loosen it up.
Okay. And what do you weigh?
I weigh like 150 pounds basically.
Okay.
And and I ride 26 and a half liters. Some of my boards are 27, so I think 26 and a half to 27 liters is kind of the liters I like.
Okay. Well, let's talk about. I think for a lot of people out there, there's been so many puddle jumpers that they get a little bit confused.
Yeah.
So like just going through the history of the puddle jumper, there was the original puddle jumper that was a squash tail, and that had a pretty full volume like width nose and also thickness nose. Then there was the puddle jumper round pin, which a lot of people really like that board, like just a really good like all-arounder, like really good hybrid board. Then they had the Puddle Jumper HP, where they started narrowing the nose and thinning the rails and like kind of giving it more high performance. And they had that board in a squash and a round pin, and now the Puddle Jumper Pro, which is this board. And so every one of the generations of those puddle jumpers has been getting, there was one that was called HP, but the whole evolution has been more HP, basically more high performance. Adding a little bit of rocker to the board. Narrowing the nose each generation, but trying to keep like what you described, like that skipping, like that puddle jumper feel to it, like the ability to make a lot of speed when there is no speed and carry speed like after you've made it. And
that was definitely something I noticed compared to my traditional shortboard that I would ride, even in small waves, like my smaller wave one, which would be for me, my smaller wave shortboard is a 510. And then like when the waves are good, I'll go up to like a 6.0 or 5.11, depending on the size and juice of it. But like say my traditional 510 for small waves, and then this thing was definitely scooting along a lot quicker. And like they said, it's the puddle jumper. It does kind of feel like it's like, and I don't know if it was the technology of this light speed, or it's just the way this board's made with all the concave in it, to help generate that feel. But it definitely goes really fast when you need to put the gas on. So
yeah. So I mean, talking about the construction. So this one, 2 of these boards showed up, right? You had a 5.7 show up in poly. Yep. And then you had this one show up in light speed, and you ended up going this one just like under the arm feel and like the volume and like kind of what you thought was going to work better. You went for this one.
Yeah, I felt this one just had the right volume when I put it under my arm. The other one looked a little bit beefy for me, where I probably was going to be like just dragging a little bit too full.
Okay.
Volume for my style of surfing.
So the light speed construction, it's a stringerless EPS core, epoxy resin, and then like unique glass schedule as far as like the types of glasses that they're using and the placement and the carbon strips and everything. And this being stringerless, like that's where you're getting the bend, the bend and the release from, like that you wouldn't get in a stringered board, than having these carbon strips and the glass schedule that Lost puts together. So, and then also obviously lighter, than a poly. So the first thing that we noticed on this board, like, whether it was in Lost release online or like actually having one in hand, is like how much this thing has like kind of progressed into just looking like a shortboard.
Yeah.
And you're like, where is the puddle jumper? Like inside this thing, after having seen all of the puddle jumpers, and until you put a pad on it, like a tail pad on it, you actually think it is a shortboard. And then you put the tail pad on it and you can see how much wider the tail is than like a standard shortboard. You were making the comment, like normally like on your whiplashes, the pad would be like almost to the rail. Right?
Yeah, on the boards I ride, I wouldn't have this much space on the sides, and this tail plug was way far back, which is awesome. I love to put my grip pads as far back to the tail plug as I can on every single board, just because I feel backside I always like to get my foot way back here. And I felt that was more so on this board with the wide tail, that backside I really wanted to get my foot pushed right up against this, and that was my sweet spot.
Yep.
especially on the backside for me. That's how I go. So my suggestion with any board is always get your grip pads back, but more so especially if it has a really wide tail, that's where you're going to want to put your foot.
And like you know, you were talking about like your sweet spot on volume is like normally like 26 and a half, like 27. Like in smaller surf, are you adding volume at all, or are you just staying the same volume and like kind of changing the design?
I mean, if we're going really small, like Virginia Beach small,
okay,
I could add a little bit of volume.
Right.
But no, it's
but everything else you kind of stay right around the same,
stay the same,
right?
and you just kind of change the board. I think you can go to a shorter board,
okay,
you know, and then it just distributes the volume different to maybe a little more width in the nose, and then it helps carry that board through.
Okay.
But yeah, I can add a half a liter to a liter for like if I'm really going to be groveling.
Like tiny, like tinier than what's in this video.
But at this stage in my life, I'll be honest, I don't like to pedal that much when it's that small.
Okay,
so
right.
I can be patient. There's always another.
You can coach.
I can watch my kids. Yeah, I can watch the kids. I have a coffee on the beach. I'll watch them surf.
Right.
There's always another swell coming next week, and I'll be on that one.
Yeah. I mean, so lesson learned on that one is not necessarily adding a ton of volume for the like softer conditions, but just changing the design a little bit, you know, especially with this thing looking so close to like a sub driver, but yet it's not, you know, like it just has like that built-in extra horsepower, you know, for making speed.
And I think too, this comes to your level of surfing. I think the less advanced surfer you are, you might want to add a whole extra liter to a liter and a half.
Yep.
You know what I mean? You know, potentially too, if you're like just kind of in the early stages of surfing. As me, I can generate a lot of my own speed with body movement, you know, and then probably I'd say like your mid-tier surfers up can probably do that.
Yep.
But if you're below that, where you're just kind of, you know, your body's not working as well with the board to generate speed, you're going to want to add some liters if you're going to be surfing little waist high and below wave, you know, waist high waves.
And so on this trip, I mean, you had a great, as far as like what people would be surfing on Puddle Jumper in, you had a great range of conditions, right? Like what was the smallest that you were riding this board in?
Oh, it was pretty small. It was like, I mean, the day was like waist to chest on the biggest sets, but like I was catching some waves that are just like knee high just to goof around on, and the board is still like skipping along, you know.
All right, and then like kind of the best range, like what were the better sets like on that last day?
Yeah, that last day we got where the wind went offshore was nice. There's some head high surf. You know, maybe a tad bit overhead on the drops, but it was just solid head high, had good power, and the board performed well. I was curious if it would still be able to hold a nice turn, and it was doing everything it needed to do.
Okay, so from like kind of, you know, knee high all the way up to head high, it's kind of
and I don't know what to do overhead high. I only rode up to head high, but it worked for me in head high surf, and then it worked for me in knee to waist high surf as well. So
awesome, awesome. And then how, like, compared to, you know, again, like because this thing looks so close to your whiplash or so close to, you know, like a shortboard, like a sub driver or something, you know, what's the main difference that the surfer's going to feel like compared to that shortboard?
I think the main thing that you're going to feel like compared to a regular board is just this board kind of wants to go. It does want to just skip along, jump along, puddle jumper. It kind of gets up and just, and you can dance down a line and get down to where you need to be. But it also is just really nice. You get back on the tail and it'll swoop around and carve. So, you know, you'll see some of the video of me surfing it, and there's a few really good waves. We had a lot of fun. I really enjoyed riding this board. You know, and
pulling the width off of the nose, you know, compared to like some of the, you know, like more like traditional puddle jumpers or some of the bigger hybrids. Like, what are you feeling like having that narrower nose?
So what I noticed when you have a board with too wide of a nose, sometimes you'll catch water up here. I never caught water up here. I never felt it as an issue. Where sometimes I'll ride a board that's really got a full nose and it's coming around. Some of the older fishes we were riding back in the day, you'll catch the rail sometimes there when you're doing something. This never caught on me. There's never a hindrance from the nose. And it is a little wider nose than what I would ride, but not much. So it holds more of a traditional shape up there. Okay. You know, and it holds the volume good. It's a really nice board. I really enjoyed riding this board. So.
Awesome. Well, hey, Cory, thank you so much for the feedback on this thing. Obviously, this one's going home with you.
Yeah, I'm going to keep this one. I liked it. That's my kids asking this morning, Dad, you didn't keep that board? I'm like, yeah, I like it.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, thank you so much for joining us. If any of you out there have any more questions on the Puddle Jumper Pro from Lost Surfboards, or you'd like to place an order for one, either poly, Lightspeed, stock, or custom order, you can always give us a call at the shop, 252-987-6000, or look us up online, realwatersports.com/surfing. Thanks for tuning in.